Okay, so here we are with technology. We just love it, don't we? If it works, it's amazing, but and then sometimes it doesn't. So I've got a kind of live and preparing and recording going on. So do you know what? We're just going to go with it and let's see what it all brings. So welcome again. It's Brenda's back, and welcome to day 5 of the Power of Women Making a Difference online summit. And we have got a huge powerhouse of a woman with us, and I can't wait to get into this conversation, this soul talk, as I like to say. And I'm not going to say anything else because I want to introduce her straight away, and it is Helen Lewis from Literally PR. Welcome.
Thank you, Brenda, for your lovely warm welcome.
Oh, you are I'm so delighted that you are here. So I thought we would just start, let's get warmed up, and the best thing is just you tell us who you are, what you do, and how you support other powerful women.
Okay, so I am Helen, as you said. I have a PR and marketing agency called Literally PR that's been running since 2012. And before that, I got a PR qualification in 2006, and before that I became an NCCJ qualified journalist in 2001. I'm a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and I do a lot of events and PR and marketing for authors, for entrepreneurs, men and women, and all around the world. So we have clients currently in Germany, Australia, Ireland, America, and then obviously the UK. So lots of different clients, lots of different strategies that we use. So it's not just traditional PR, sort of pitching to press, and we do that, but a lot more sort of online stuff, marketing, digital marketing, social media, and that sort of thing as well. So quite a big range of services.
Yes, wow, it is. And you know, I love that. I love part of the fact is that you do a lot of marketing for authors, and a lot of the ladies on the summit are authors, and a part of I'm going to hold it up here. Voices of Hope, which we're launching on November the 23rd at the De Vere Beaumont Hotel in Windsor. So it's a book launch, it's a conference, so it's a big open event. So I'm very excited about that as well. So you've kind of gone through quite a lot of things to get to where you are, but what I really want to know, what is the passion that's led you? You've done a few different tasks, haven't you? But now you're out there, you're a woman in business, running her own business. So what got you to that stage? Tell us a wee bit about that journey.
Well, I started off in corporate journalism, you know, in a big, very big, with Reuters, in a very big organisation, and I quickly realised that I wasn't really very good at being in an office with like hundreds of other people. I mean, you could call it a control freak. I mean, just saying.
I'm not saying anything.
But there was just definitely something about that real hierarchy, that, you know, and sort of impenetrable hierarchy. And there was one sort of turning point, which I always talk about. I've probably bored lots of people that are listening already, but the idea was that we were having this meeting and somebody just said, oh my God, you know, I just wish the women would just stop talking in the office. It's like there's a mother's meeting going on every day. And I just sat there and thought, wow, how can you actually be allowed to say that, first of all? And second of all, we're in a marketing, I was sat in a marketing department. And so I was the editor commissioning people to write about food and drink and stuff. And then there was this marketing department next to me. And so we would have conversations about, oh, that article would be really good, you could market it in this way. And we'd actually be two different departments coming together, which is what you'd think most people would like in a business.
Absolutely.
They liked separate divisions. They didn't want people talking, and they were very, you know, gender specific. Oh, it's like these women, you know, these women are always talking. And I just thought, oh my God, this is just not for me. So I left and became a freelancer. And as soon as I had that freelance lifestyle, that sort of taste of a bit of freedom, being able to make decisions quickly, being creative, having an idea and just doing it rather than having to ask 25 different men whether I was allowed to do it or not. I just decided that was the way for me. And I also knew that I wanted to have children if I was able to, which I thankfully have had 2 daughters. And I just knew that I wanted a more flexible working life. So the whole corporate world of sort of being there at 8 and not being allowed to leave till 7, even if you've done all your work, didn't really make any sense to me. So it was about the flexibility, it was about the creativity. And then from there, I realised that the thing that I loved the most about journalism was finding the stories and the sort of the angles. And so then that kind of became PR, really. So a lot of the food and drink companies that I worked with asked me to represent them, basically, to be their PR, their publicist. So I did a qualification, I went back to night school and did that when I was in my 20s. And then I set up the PR company as it is now, specialising in working with authors and entrepreneurs, back when I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I just thought, I'm doing it.
Why not?
Yeah, I'm not busy enough. So
and actually, Helen, I'm a mother of 4, and I know what it's like. When I had all those young children, I was doing everything, and I thought, am I nuts? What am I doing to myself? But you know what they say, if you want something done, ask a busy person, because you get yourself so organised. Do you know what I mean?
No, you're exactly right.
Yeah, so it's wonderful. And the life of an author is, as I've been saying to my co-authors, if you think writing your story and us getting this book, you think that's you're done, no, we're just at the beginning. So what kind of advice do you give to authors around PR when they're just starting out?
So I was actually writing a blog post this morning about, we've got something called the Author School that I co-founded with a lady called Abiola Bello, and we're doing our next class. We've been doing it for 5 years now, but our next class is in November on the 11th in London. And one of the sessions I'm running is about what to do before the book launches. Yeah. So I was writing this blog post, and I thought it'd be quite handy for today's session as well, because there are so many things to do before the book launches, as you say. And it definitely doesn't end there. It keeps going. But the difference between what I've noticed, the difference between successful authors and those that aren't as successful, is that they do lose momentum. And whether that's that sort of lack of motivation after that first royalty check, or whether it's just that they're writing another book, so they're a bit distracted, or maybe it's just not been quite the journey they thought it was going to be. They lose that spark and that kind of passion for it, and unless you keep it going, and as the author, you're kind of the one that really does need to keep it going out of everyone. Yeah. Then it just disappears, and someone else will come and take your place. So there's lots of stuff to do before. There's lots of stuff to do that you can do during launch time, and then there's loads of stuff to do afterwards. And I mean, it is advisable to write another book afterwards. You don't want to be just a one-book wonder, but at the same time, you do need to give your first book the chance of some sort of life, and not get distracted. So, I mean, things you can do before. The biggest thing to do before you launch a book is to really map out who your reader is. So, who is your target audience? It's kind of like rule 101 of marketing, really. But who is your audience? And then where are they? So it's the whole who, what, where, when, why, how thing. So who are they?
Narrative.
Where are they? So when I say where, I don't just mean where do they live. I mean, although that can be helpful, because it might be that you think that your book is very UK centric. So that means that the PR and social media and marketing should be UK centric. It might be that you've got a more international type of book. So any English language speaking country could be, of appeal to you, but be quite specific about it. And actually, I mean, I've worked with people where we've kind of created a person, and so she's called Jo, and she's in her 30s, and she's on Twitter. She's not that into Facebook. She loves Instagram. She's got young kids. She does all her shopping online. She only buys her books from Amazon. And all of a sudden you get this picture. She listens to BBC Radio 4 Women's Hour every morning, but she also likes a bit of Loose Women, and it's that kind of, it's just trying to work out who is that person that you're trying to reach. And then from there, it's like, right, well, how do you get to them? How do you tell them about your book? Because that's kind of the point, isn't it? Like, you try to get people outside of your network to read your book, because you can get your family to read it, you can get your friends to read it, you can get some of your people on social media to read it within reason, can't you? That's not that hard. But to get people outside of the network is where it's going to start changing in terms of sales, in terms of your next potential book deal, everything. All the doors open up when you get out of that immediate circle. And so it's very important you look at how to do that. And I don't really honestly think that anyone is capable of doing that on their own. Now, I would say that, but I don't think they are, because how can you be a writer, a business person, so you're running your own business as well. You're reinventing yourself as an author, which is a separate career, essentially. You're trying to write your next book, you're blogging, you're managing your website, you're doing your social media. You can't do everything. And I think there has to be a point where you think, I do need a team around me, and therefore, what am I going to outsource? And a lot of people outsource the PR to us because they know that we've done it for years. We've got the connections, we've got the relationships with people. I mean, I had a journalist ring me this morning and say, do you know someone who is, she's on a really big women's magazine. Do you know someone who's a body confidence, kind of body positivity expert? And I said, yes. And she said, can you get them to answer these 3 questions by Monday, and we'll include a picture of them, their book, and their answers in the next magazine. And it's because I know them and they know me. They come to me and ask me that. I don't have to fish around trying to find these opportunities. They come to me a lot of the time, and that's what you're doing. If you pay a publicist, you're paying for their relationships and their ability to connect
and their connections. Absolutely, because I know myself. This is my 2nd book, and I've been in some other books which I haven't really done much with at all. But you're right, it's and I know that it's beyond that book, and it's leading up to getting all that energy around the book coming out and getting the excitement, and you can do so much yourself, but you can't do everything because you spread yourself so thinly, and that's not good for anybody.
No.
So you have to consider the investment and know it's a wise investment, and in the long run it's going to open doors and opportunities for you. That's what it's all about, because it takes time, so it's that visibility, isn't it? But if it was somebody, say like me, I'm sitting there, well, who could I might have 2 or 3 people, but somebody like you've got years of experience, and it's worth it. I absolutely do believe that it's worth it. So tell me a wee bit more about you in terms of what are your special gifts and talents that you bring to your job every day?
I guess the main sort of talent that I've developed over the years is my writing talent. So I've always wanted to write. I've always wanted a job that involves writing. And so I did a journalism degree, and then I obviously was a journalist, but I was writing all the time. And then what I love now is when I get the chance, and I don't get to do them as often as I did, when I get to actually write the press releases and write the articles, or come up with the questions for the interviews and things. Because there's a team of us now, and as you were saying, you can't do everything. So I don't end up doing as much of that sort of work as I did. But I do love it when I get to do it. And for me, writing is something that just comes naturally, but it's a pleasure. So I love the idea of just sitting down and being able to write. And what I like as well is that I get every book that I work on, I get to read it and get to understand something completely different. So I've worked on, historic fiction, parenting books, health books, business books, so many different things. And it's really, each one you kind of really delve into it and get to know, and you sort of become like a mini expert in that field for that time. And all these different bits and bobs. So for me, it's kind of reading something, pulling out the good bits, and then coming up with my own writing, basically, that will then encourage a journalist to either call the book in or ask the author for an interview or run an extract or something like that. So for me, it's the best, the bit that I love the most, and the thing I'm probably best at is the writing.
And that in itself is creative, isn't it? So obviously there's a great creative spirit in you, as well as leadership, with everything that you've done, and leading yourself and then leading your business. It's so important. So what 3 things about leadership would you say is vital to your success?
Well, first of all, it was accepting that I am a leader, because that wasn't really a term that ever sort of sat with me. And actually, I remember once that I was in a meeting and with 2 people that were working with me, and I always say working with, not for, and they said, "Oh, come on, boss, you sit here." And I just looked at them as if to say, "What?" Because I just don't see it like that. So it was, first of all, it was that sort of accepting that title, but then realizing you don't have to do it the way everyone thinks you should do it, or the way you sort of see other people do it. You can make your own path, and you can be your own, you can take your own style with it, and you don't have to sort of be, like I say, the boss, or, you know, it doesn't have to be like that at all. So the team that I work with we're very open to flexibility, creativity, ideas. If someone has an idea, I would never not listen to it. I'm open to everything. So, and if somebody comes to me and says, oh, I've seen this event, I'd like to go to that, then I'll try and make it happen. So it's very much about trying to nurture what they want to do, and also identifying what people's talents are. So yeah, I guess the second point is really knowing what your talents are within your team, and knowing how to sort of work those to the best of, to the optimum for everyone, for the clients, for the team, for everyone. And then the third one, I think, is just enjoying it, because how lucky are we to be able to be in a country where we have the freedom to be able to set up a business and have a team of people and be a leader and be involved in things like this. Like, I just think the freedom we have, especially with the political climate as it is, and it's all very negative everywhere. Actually, the fact is we do live in a country where we are able to do such amazing creative jobs, and I'm very grateful actually that I'm able to do it, because it's allowed me to be with my children when they come home from school. Some days, you know, pretty much every day I take them to school, because they're still young and they still need me. So it's for me, it's a gift really that we're able to do it.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I really love what you said, and I think to be successful, and particularly as a leader, you do need to be open, you know, and there's all sorts of different types of leaderships, and it's totally turning on its head now with more and more women coming through into leadership. You just actually, the other day, I just saw a quick glimpse of the House of Commons, and there was more women sitting than there were men, and I was like, wow, when did that happen?
Brilliant.
Oh, yeah. I was like, whoa. So I thought, that's good. And but yeah, openness, because a great leader, it doesn't need to be your ideas, does it? You might have an idea, but somebody can come in and just come from a different perspective. Sorry.
Yes, that's all right.
Come from a different perspective, add something extra, and all of a sudden, I don't know about you, but I know as a leader, and when I've had my team, I've sat there and I've gone, my God, that's brilliant. By just changing that one thing, that's going to even be better than, you know? Exactly. And that's the power of having a great team, that openness, that collaboration, that, you know, that everybody's valued in what they're doing.
I think it's trust as well, isn't it? You know, you've got to be able to trust that they, and that for a long time, I found that very difficult. So for a long time, it was just me. And then obviously, you know, as always happens with a business that's growing, you do need to at some points accept that you need to get some help. And finding the right person is really, really hard. You know, you'd get someone come in, they'd promise you the world, and then they'd be absolutely useless. You know, they'd disappear for weeks on end, and you'd be like, "Hi, are you doing any work? Like, what's going on?" And I am quite soft. You know, I'm a bit too nice sometimes. So a lot of the time, you know, there is a potential that I can be taken, you know, for a bit of a mug. So I did. So for a few years, I was kind of like, well, this isn't working. The team isn't working. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, and I don't know how it happened. But basically, I managed to find an amazing group of people, and I think from the day they all started, I've given them the trust and confidence. Like they have my confidence in what they do. So, and if anything ever goes wrong, I've got their back, because I understand that everyone's human and everyone makes mistakes. And, you know, that kind of openness, as well as the openness to their ideas, and just giving it back to them, making sure that they feel respected. And that's based on that initial feeling of, in this, you know, corporate world, just thinking nobody's listening to what I'm saying, and nobody really cares what I'm saying.
So I mean, you need to be highly commended, because that's extraordinary to have that kind of trust and work with a team, because your results will reflect all of that, compared to, you know, and people are happy. You know, I've seen you in action with some of your team members, and it's amazing to see, and it's just bouncing ideas, bouncing things, and it's not like you're right, I'm wrong. It's just
No.
just creating something bigger and better.
Mhm.
So with your authors, how do you help them step into their power?
Well, I mean, a lot of the authors we work with are first-time authors, so they're not necessarily self-published, but they might be collaboratively published. So they've worked with someone with a publishing house where they've contributed or halved costs or whatever, or it might be that they're traditionally published. So we work across the whole spectrum of publishing, and a lot, like I said, a lot of them are first-time authors. They are often very successful in a different career, and so they're kind of reinventing themselves as an author. And so what I try and explain to them is don't separate them too much, because even if you are a scientist and you're writing a women's fiction book, the fact is you've got connections within that your science world, whether it's your uni friends or whether it's colleagues from different jobs or societies or associations. Maybe you've talked to different conferences. All these people also read novels. So they are all people that need to know about it. So don't sort of separate them too much. But bear in mind that when you are becoming an author, this is a whole new business. This is a whole new world that you probably don't know a lot about. So my advice to everyone that I ever start working with when they're new to it is get yourself in the publishing world. You're an author, own your place within it. And that means subscribing to something like The Bookseller or Book Brunch, because they are the trade Bibles and they put out news every day, and you need to be knowing what's going on in the publishing world. Get yourself signed up as an author on Facebook. There are loads of communities in Facebook that are just authors, and they're so helpful. I mean, 99.9% of the time, they're all lovely and friendly and open. And if you have any questions, even if they're real newbie questions, they'll answer them. And just try and, like I say, become the role that you are hoping to be. Don't sort of wait for the book to be published. Don't wait for it to be a bestseller. You are an author. If you're writing a book, you're an author. It's just that you're at a different stage of your author career to maybe someone else. So to really invest, I would say, time in getting to understand the industry that you're working in. I can't imagine any other industry where you would try and be a part of it without doing any research into what it entails or how well the industry's doing or who's the big players or when I meet with an author and they don't know who the big publishing houses are, or they haven't really got a clue about how royalties work, or they don't really understand the different types of publishing, it worries me, because I don't know how you can be an author without knowing more about that industry.
Yeah, I think I've spoken to a number of people myself, and I think what happens is authors get an idea and they just want to write. Maybe they've had a love of writing. I'm working with someone just now, and they wrote as a child but didn't think much of it, and then there was writing in their sort of capacity in corporate, and they were getting comments about they were a good writer, and then they thought, well, maybe I should write a book now. But people don't actually think, what does it take? It's like people want to go into show business, I would expect as well. People just want to sing or act or do whatever it is they do, but they don't actually think, who do I need to become to be that successful?
Who do I need to learn from?
Who do I need to grow into? What do I need to do? You always need to work on yourself, and what you were saying about people, be that author now that you want to be down the line, but be it now. So that's very much law of attraction type thinking,
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is.
So there is a lot of that as well. So
but it's also just, I mean, it's law of attraction, as in you putting yourself out there. I am what I want to become, which I do subscribe to. But there's also a level of, well, you're investing, even if you're not investing money, but believe me, you will at some point if you're becoming an author. Then you're investing a lot of time into writing a book. So why would you invest a lot of time into writing a book, without also thinking, right now I need to look at how to be the best author I can be? And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a bestseller or you have to have sold millions of copies by the end of the first year. What I mean is, for you, so establish what success is going to be for you in the first year, 5 years, blah, blah, blah. But also look at, well, what do I need to be doing to make this work? Because unless, of course, you're writing a book and you're not bothered about how well it does, and you're just writing purely for the sake of writing, which is a totally different thing. I'm talking about authors who want to become successful. Then they need to really look at where they fit into this industry. And if they don't know anything about the industry, they're going to struggle. They're also going to have really unrealistic expectations, and I think that's where the motivation dips massively, when you get people selling this idea of, if you invest tens of £1,000s into publishing this book, you will make X amount of pounds back and you will get this opportunity, because you can't guarantee anything like that.
You can't, because let's face it, the public are fickle, aren't they? So what they want 1 quarter or half a year, then they turn the back on it because something else, because we're like that today, aren't we? It's like microwave mentality, and it's like everything's so quick. Social media, folks scroll through,
instant.
So but I think, going back to what we were saying earlier, it's about knowing that client and really getting social and understanding. It's all the psychology. There's just so much to it. And I know I'm learning a lot as well around all of this, the publishing world and being an author. And which means for me that education is really necessary. You'll find yourself somewhere where there's education and knowing how you need to start thinking, what you need to start doing, and start gleaning yourself and empowering yourself. But then reach out and ask and get the help of people like yourself, Helen.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also about knowing who to trust, because there are a lot of
there's that as well,
dodgy people in any industry. But the one thing that I really noticed in the publishing industry when I first started, like nearly 10 years ago, was the number of people who would make false promises, and then they would deliver awful quality books, or they would say they're going to get their books into every single bookshop, and they can't promise that. It's all the promises that are completely, when you get down the line, that they're not even true. But of course, if you hear, we're going to make the most amazing book for you, it's going to be in every bookshop, blah, 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 then you think, wow, oh my God, yes, it's amazing, it's all going to happen for me. And then it doesn't. Of course you're going to be disappointed. But by that point, you spent, your life savings. I mean, I started the author school in 2015 because of one woman. She was in her late 70s. She had spent thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds on boxes of books that were sat in her back bedroom, and she showed me it. Literally the whole room was full of boxes of books. She'd had to print so many to keep the unit cost down, but they were full of errors. They were absolutely full of them, and there was nothing she could do. She'd self-published it with this guy who said he was going to edit it. He didn't even edit it, and it was just the whole thing was awful. And this poor woman was in her late 70s. She didn't have a clue, what to do. She couldn't sell them. She couldn't do anything. It was completely lost. And I thought, at that point, I've got to set something up that's going to help people understand what's real and what's not in publishing, because this is a sort of illusion of, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write a book, it's going to get printed, someone's going to deal with it, and then I'm suddenly going to see all this money coming through, and I'm going to be able to write another one, and then more money's going to come through. And I don't mean to be negative, but it doesn't really work like that.
No,
and actually, what usually makes you the money is stuff around the books, so opportunities that come from the books, or speaking gigs, or signings, talking at literary festivals. These sorts of things are where you make your money. Not necessarily, you're not going to necessarily make your big bucks from.
You're not going to make it from Amazon.
You're definitely not going to make it from Amazon. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a huge eye opener for people, isn't it? Learning a bit more about Amazon, but we won't talk about that today. But we've just planted the seed.
Scare them.
I know, planted the seed. But do you know what I'm loving about this conversation, Helen? And thank you very much. I'm feeling actually quite emotional, because I love how you're saying it as it is. You're speaking the truth. I spoke with an author on the last 3-4 weeks, and I couldn't believe how much somebody wanted to take from her to just put the book on Amazon for her without anything. I was shocked. I was literally, I was like, what? And what are you getting for that? Oh no, I've just to give them it and they'll get it on Amazon for me. And how much? And I'm like, nah.
It's the thing. It's like, if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to learn, and it doesn't take long, but if you don't want to learn, and I do get it, about how to get a book on Amazon, then fine, pay someone to do it, but don't just pay the first person that comes along. Look and see, and lots of people offer that as a service, so look and see what they offer and what you get in return for it, because it's all about outsourcing, isn't it, like we said at the beginning. So if you want to outsource the book going on Amazon, you do that, but then know that money could have been spent somewhere else, possibly. Yeah. And you could have just taught yourself how to do that.
That's right. You could get a bigger ROI, for example, But books are more than it's more than just the book and the content, isn't it? Because it's the opportunity and the way that it can elevate you by how you're putting yourself across, particularly non-fiction books I'm talking about here, maybe not so much in the fiction world, because I seem to be involved more in non-fiction world, and that's a really good point to be making to authors, particularly people in business. Maybe they're a speaker and they want to have a book, maybe they're in business and they want to get a book, they want to get all the knowledge that they've gleaned over the last 10-15 years, and because they really believe that it's their philosophy, so what advice do you separate your advice first of all from fiction and non-fiction? Do you deal with it differently?
Yeah, we have to, really, because as you say, non-fiction usually comes with years of I've got all this expertise in this area, and there's a very clear link between them and the book. Whereas with fiction, you could be, like I said earlier, a scientist and you've written a rom-com or something. That's like I said, you can still tap into that network you've got through the science world, but it's not necessarily quite so easy to cross over. So yeah, and it's much harder to do PR and marketing for a fiction book unless there's a very clear theme. Now, we do PR for fiction books, but we would, in all honesty, we probably do more than half of our non-fiction now. It's not 50-50 anymore. It used to be. And that's because more and more fiction books are being published every year, and it's just literally just becoming such a saturated market that actually getting above that noise is hard. And there are lots of things that can be done and should be done for a fiction book, because otherwise you end up really just dropping into the ether. But there are also lots of things you should be doing for a non-fiction book that tend to see, I think, often quicker turnaround in terms of return on investment, because it's quite a clear path really for a non-fiction book if it's very closely aligned with what you do for a living, or what you're known for.
So that's probably the secret, which kind of brings me into, if you think of like Stephen Covey and Darren Hardy and Napoleon Hill, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and all these books and things, they've got longevity. What does it take for a book to have longevity?
I think it's sustaining the momentum. So I don't think necessarily. I mean, obviously, it's down to from the content perspective. You've got to think about: do you want your book to be the sort of book that only has 2017 data in it and it's been published in 2020, and that's going to be out of date, or does it matter that it's got 2017 data in it? You've got to look at the accuracy, the up to dateness of your information for a non-fiction book, and the relevance of it. And you've got to be prepared as well, I think, to do a second edition if it is like that, if it is really timely. But then beside the content, which is a separate issue really, it's about keeping that momentum and building. So don't stay like that. You need to keep going up. So don't just do one blog post a week in the run up to the book launch. Keep it going afterwards if you're seeing traction. Don't waste time on something that doesn't seem to be getting any results as well. So give it a go. Give it a go for a few months. And if you're seeing that nothing's really coming from it, then you need to be thinking, right, well, I need to try something else. So don't kind of push water up a hill, basically, by doing maybe a Facebook Live every week. If the Facebook Live's not getting any views after 3 months, you might need to think, well, what about maybe the people that I'm talking to, maybe they prefer written content, or maybe they prefer short tweets, or maybe they, think, again, it goes back to who is your target audience and how do they consume information. And just keep on it, because I honestly see so many people pay us to do a PR campaign. We give them social media support. We have this thing called a digital audit where we go through all their online platform. We give them suggestions about how they can improve different social media. So Twitter, for example, we give them ideas about how to improve their website. They do all these things. They get some really good media coverage, radio interviews, TV, newspapers, and then as soon as it stops, they stop. And it literally just goes, you search for them, they haven't tweeted for 6 months. You look at their book on Amazon, it's like at 20 million on the charts. It's just gone, and they haven't sustained it. And so you kind of think, well, what was the point? What was the point of that?
Would you say then that the non-fiction books, that it depends on the business model that the author's got for that. So for example, they might create a book that's got something that's ideal, let's say, for workshops, you know, that they can do offline and online, that supports their theory, and then they can create something to take the theory and put it into practice. Would be looking at those kind of things as well.
Yeah, that's where you're going to make your money as well, isn't it? So it's taking a one piece of content and then disseminating it into different formats. So that's what the publishing industry is really trying to catch up with. That's why there's so much publishing tech happening now, so that they can move away from just being a printed book. There's ebooks, there's audio books, there's lots of different technology now that are trying to disseminate. Then you've got the book to film market, which is obviously huge. And so these publishers recognize that actually they're not going to make their money from just selling the book as a paperback. They need to have it in different formats. And I think for a non-fiction, that lends itself perfectly to other formats of that type of book. So it could be that you take a chapter from your book. So say you've got 10 chapters in your book, each chapter could be a different workshop. And if you know that when you're writing the book, then that will help you to shape both the book and the workshop. You could have online courses, online tutorials where it's linked to within the book. And so it's like, well, right, I've read that chapter. Now, if I want more, or if I want to take it to the next level, all I've got to do is log in with this particular code that you only get if you subscribe to your email or whatever, you know, the website on your mailing list. And then you get some more content, and then you can pay for an upgrade, or, you know, that's where you get a lot more. And I see very business savvy women doing this a lot more now, and it's really brilliant to see.
And I think they're like, yeah, and I see more use of like QR codes. So you click that and it takes you to a video and you sign up. So they're building their lists, and then they're taking them on to maybe a bit of a freebie, and then they do all that upselling. Buy this for $49, buy this for $99. Come on this course for $500, come and join this, you know. So that's how I'm saying with PR now, there's definitely a lot, you know, as you're saying, you're looking at other things, getting into that business model. Oh my God, I tell you, people, entrepreneurs, they want that, because they're struggling as it is, trying to think, well, what else can I do in my business? How am I going to generate more money? How am I going to generate passive income? So I'm not, it's not like I've got to be always, you know. So
everyone wants passive income.
I'm excited about that.
Well, I think that people see books as a passive income, and I think that's where it goes. That's the biggest problem, isn't it? Is this like, well, I've done the hard work, so now I'm going to sit back and the book's just going to sell itself, and that isn't how it works. No. So I think if you can be aware of the fact that the book isn't going to necessarily be your passive income, but something like an offshoot from the book, like an online course that you can upgrade to, or you pay a monthly subscription to, for sure, that is where you're going to get your passive income, because, you know, that's kind of like, that piggybacks off the book. So you need things to piggyback off, but of course, for anything to work, people need to know about it. So that's where PR and marketing come in, because if other people don't know about it, you can rely on word of mouth, and a lot of businesses do. I mean, the irony of my PR agency is that we've never done any PR. We've just never done
I was going to ask you that question.
I've been really honest, Brenda. I think it's because I just got back from my holiday and I'm like, yeah, just so relaxed. We've never done any PR. We don't need to. It's all word of mouth, because one author talks to another author, and that's what I love about authors. Yeah. They are very giving with their, you know, their success stories as well as their challenges. So if they've worked with someone who they like and they see that they have had results, then they'll tell the next person. So we've never been short on clients. But of course that doesn't work the same way for a book.
No,
not to the same level as you need it to, because of the margins. The margins in books are ridiculous. So to sell enough books to be able to make a decent amount of money, you know, you're talking a lot of volume. A lot of people need to know about your book. So you have to break out of your network to be able to get to that, you know, next level of people, and try and get your book to be sold by in as many bookshops as possible, in as many different formats as possible, so that you can reach lots of people and hopefully, convert them to something else that you're selling.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Yeah, we've talked about the change in the clients. So when the clients get success, does that really spur them on to keep going? How do you feel, or do they come back? Do you find your clients come and get a block, they go away, they do stuff, and then as they see them, like the things going down, right, go back to Helen, get another bit, and is that how it works?
Yeah, we do have a lot of repeat business, and that's lovely, but it gets harder and harder to do the old media magic, as we call it in PR. So it's very difficult, to kind of come up with new angles after a period of time. As much as we are quite creative, but if you think you've got one book and you're trying to flog that one piece of content and there's not really anything else around it, it's quite tricky. If a client came back to us and said, right, you did that 6-month campaign, it was brilliant. What I've done now, a year later, is I've just launched a new course, or I'm about to launch a new course that's associated with the book, and we're going to do a big event in London. I want you to help me get some journalists there. We can talk about the event, we can talk about the course. We've got new things to talk about. Then yes, but if it's going back over the same old ground, sometimes it does work if it's a seasonal. So, for example, we've just had Black History Month, Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October, so we did campaigns around that, and there is no reason why the books we PR'd for that couldn't then be PR'd next year for that as well. But you couldn't do that every year. You'd need to come up with something a bit different next time.
Yeah, and that's how it's always a collaboration with your client, isn't it? It's not just one thing, and I really love that. So, okay, top 3 tips for authors who are about to publish some books so that it empowers them, so it's something that they can remember, and it's got a bit of a rinse and repeat. What would you say?
Right, okay. Well, do you know what? I'm going to put a link on to this Facebook post when it's done, because I've written out a list of 20 things.
Wow.
People can be getting on with before the book launches. So I will share. I can share all 20.
That's very generous. Thank you so much for sharing.
That's all right. But the first 3 things on this list, but like I said, there's 20 of them. The first one is identify your target reader in as much detail as possible. So we've talked about that. The second one is, if you haven't already, you do need to get on social media. You do need to set up a Twitter account if you're an author. That's where on Twitter. That's where the publishing industry is. That's where authors are. So you need to be on there because you're an author. And then you need to decide whether it's Instagram or Facebook. And if you're going to go on Instagram or Facebook, depends on who your target audience is, age group of your target audience, that's something. That's why you need to do step 1 before you can really properly do step 2. And then the next one is spend some time, not money here, time, building up a targeted and relevant network. Okay, so that is on social media. That's via your website. So on your mailing list, you need to be able to have a facility that people can leave their email and you can collate a mailing list. Like in the real world, go to your bookshop, go to events, go to other launches, other signings, start becoming that person that looks at and makes notes at different events. Oh, I like that bit, I like that bit. Take what you like and do it for your...
Do your market research, in other words.
Exactly. Get yourself out there and just spend some time extending your network. If you're terrified of the idea of going on social media, just try one. If you're terrified of going to a book launch or a book signing at your local bookshop, just try one. Because I always say, if you don't like it, don't do it. Life's too short and we're all constantly chasing our tails and trying to do a million things at once. So don't make yourself do something you don't feel comfortable with. But just give it a go. And don't give up after like a week. Give it a proper go. And if you still find Twitter awful after a month, let me know. Because I have honestly never met an author yet who has given it a proper go for a good sort of 4 to 6 weeks and not still carried on with it, because it's a little bit addictive, because the community it's terrifying in some ways, but the community can be so supportive. And so, you're unlikely to be getting trolled or, horrible comments when you're just starting out anyway. So it's only when you get past a certain point that you're going to find when your followers get to about 10,000, you start attracting the strange ones.
Last question. This is about the power of women making a difference, and you certainly are a powerful lady who's making a big difference. I know that. So what I want to know, if you can share with us, what is your secret power to success?
Oh, that's a curveball. My secret power. I think my secret power is that I never give up on anything, and that is a combination of fear of failure, need to make people feel like they've got value for money, constantly needing that, you know, to know that they feel that they've got what they deserve, and just this whole kind of feeling of if you don't keep going, when, you know, if you give up, then how are you ever going to know? It's that kind of just never give up. That's it. I'm yeah, and I think that's
persistent.
Persistency and consistency. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, consistency is true. Well, Helen, it's been a sheer joy talking to you. I know my mind's like buzzing this just now because I've got a big launch, you know.
Yeah, too much to do
later. And yeah, it's just been an absolute joy because it's part of the world that I'm in, and I think it's great for people to hear about it and demystify it, but also give them the raw and real truth.
Yeah.
Because don't let sugarcoat. Oh yeah, write a book, and you know, and as you say, you've got to really know the people out there and do your homework. Be diligent and do your homework, and just make sure the people you're working with have got a good pedigree.
Yeah, take it seriously. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Helen, thank you very much, and I'll be speaking to you real soon.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on, Brenda. Take care. Good luck with the book launch.
Thank you.